It's been long overdue, let's talk about Season 16. I've actually sat down and recorded multiple videos about Season 16, one after both of the two premieres, and then one after the girl group, and at the end of each of the videos, it kind of devolves into a whole discussion about Plain Jane, because she basically is the main character of the season. But her character seems to be ever evolving, and I just decided to scrap those videos, but I'm not going to scrap it this time because I feel like we're starting to head to a steady place with her. Before we get into Miss Jane, I just want to talk about the season in general, which I'm really liking, and I think that's mostly because of the talent on the season. It's a very high caliber cast. There have been very few misses of performances. The only one that I can really think of is the Lindsey Graham that Geneva Carr did, but aside from that, there have been no challenges yet that have been super bad. They even made me like RDR Live a little bit in concept. And we cannot forget about the runways. The most recent episode as of recording this was the Rusical episode, where we had probably one of the best runways ever in Drag Race. There was not a single miss on the main stage and very few misses this entire season. As for twists, Rate a Queen, everyone already forgot about it. I see it on Twitter all the time. I thought what Plain did was really smart, and it showed that this couldn't last for a whole season, and I'm glad that they only kept it for 3 episodes. And I honestly wouldn't mind if it never came back because it was kind of a nothing twist. Judging by the promo of this next episode, it seems like Plain might be using her potion next week. The potions in general, I think, are a very welcome twist. They haven't gone into full effect yet, and I think they can be used really interestingly. And it's the type of twist that can change things, but not too much, like the Golden Beaver on Canada 4. I always say this, but I do really think the showrunners listen to the fans. I think season 15 was a direct response to season 14. The pacing of season 14 is something that is always criticized. So for season 15, they had an elimination each week and it kept up the flow really nicely. But I think in general, the no eliminations for the first couple episodes format just works out better for production. So season 16 is also a response to season 14, but it's being paced a lot better. They have similar twists of safety, but where the Golden Chocolate Bar canceled the elimination, the potions only give immunity to a queen. It doesn't save them from a full-on elimination. And something that hasn't been mentioned that is really refreshing about this twist is that a lot of these past twists, production has their hands in them. But with these potions, it's totally up to the queens choosing whether they want to use it or not. To bring it up again, it's like the Golden Beaver twist on Canada 4. If you're gonna throw a twist at the queens, give them complete control, keep production on their toes, and honestly, it makes an interesting season. We're at the point where it's not pure Drag Race, where there's just an elimination each week and no other twists, but it's not at the point where it's devolved into a whole different show with too many twists. They're on their way to a really happy medium, and I think that is great. I think the cast this season is a really shady group, and we've really been getting to know them. And with all of them being shady, none of them back down, and it creates really interesting dynamics in their workroom. Someone like Dawn this week was really shady, and it's funny because a lot of the queens in the preseason said that Dawn was like a jokey type of villain. And in the beginning, the fans didn't really see that, but now we're starting to see it, and I'm kind of eating it up. Also, just as a side note, I don't know what's changed as of recent, but they've been letting them look into the camera. I know in the past they've kind of told them to not look in the camera because it kind of breaks the whole fourth wall, but so many queens this season are doing it, and it's so entertaining every time. I really hope that they let them keep doing this. I posted on my community tab asking what people thought about the season, and it's mostly positive. There is definitely very little full-on negativity. Most people just aren't connecting with the season, and in some ways I am falling into that category. And I think that's mostly to do with one of my favorite aspects of the show, the storytelling. At its best, Drag Race is able to tell a story out of real interactions between the queens. Yes, there may be some meddling here and there by people behind the scenes, but for the most part, it is reality TV. And as singular episodes, I think the stories that are being told are great. The girl group, especially for someone like Megami, that was a great story to tell. She redeemed herself from last pick and was really shown to be a threat in the competition, and then we get to this week where she was eliminated. And that's fine, eliminations are meant to happen, and sometimes storylines aren't finished. But then I really started to think, yes, she got that redemption and everyone was really praising her online. And of course, their group won the episode, but I don't think in the episode, her or the rest of the group got their proper praise. They were called the winners of the week and then immediately whisked off stage. And for Maya, Geneva, and Megami, 3 queens who hadn't been doing the best in the competition up to that point, I wanted them to finally get that praise from the judges for a really stellar week. But I feel like by just calling them the winners and saying, okay, you can go now, it indirectly telegraphs how they're really feeling about the people in the competition. I like when a queen's track record is insane to look at, someone like Geneva's, for example, because when a queen is given a win, they're also given praise in the episode, so sometimes you think, oh, are they going to start building up momentum from here, but instead Geneva won, left the stage without any praise, and then the next week she went home. There was a lot of time in the girl group episode giving positive critiques to people who didn't win the challenge. And in some ways that's great because I love when the queens are praised for doing a good job because so many of them did a great job. But do you see what I'm saying? It just makes it so clear that they're way more invested in the queens that are on the stage than the queens that actually won the challenge. It's telegraphing a lot of things, and I don't think that the storytelling is that great. Maybe I'm just looking too far into it. The girl group episode told me a lot about the storytelling and where they're trying to go with the season, because the queen who went home, Amanda, played a big role in the season up to this point. So let's talk about Plain Jane. I'm already getting like the nervous sweats from it, I think. Plain Jane is an extremely divisive figure that is clearly not going anywhere in the competition anytime soon. There are a lot of things that Plain does that I do enjoy. I think she lives in that perfect level of stupid and funny a lot of the time. I'm not a fan of Burger Finger, I feel like a lot of people aren't, but other things that she's done on the season have been really funny to me. The feud with Amanda though, I really can't get behind no matter how much the show is wanting me to. My big thing with this whole Plain Jane redemption arc that they're trying to do is it's just not gonna work out without Amanda there. By Amanda being eliminated, it kind of justifies everything that Plain was saying or doing. And in this most recent episode, everyone is talking about Plain in the confessionals and saying how what she is doing is probably working out the best.
For once, I've tried the Plain Jane technique of being bat out of hell, bitch about it, and it worked.
You're hanging around too much with Miss Lil Plain Jane, and I know she has a crush on Plain. Oop.
And yes, being cutthroat in the competition and poking at people, it's really getting her the screen time and it is entertaining in some ways. But Amanda leaving on that note and still being really upset at Plain, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth because it's so clear that the show wants me to kind of love-hate Plain, and I just can't really fully do that without her making amends with Amanda. That might just be a me thing. What I will say though is that it is a very interesting and unique storyline that we haven't seen in a long time on the show. So even if I'm not fully on board yet, it is still something that I love talking about, and that's just kind of Plain in general. There's always something to talk about with her, and that was definitely her goal. The next thing I do want to talk about is the placements of this season. And while most of the time I do think they are justified, it's a very, very top-heavy season already, and that's only going to get worse in the late game. And to be honest, it's also a very bottom-heavy season too. And I'm not just talking about the cast. But for real though, like every week up to this point, Q has either been in the top or one time in the bottom. And most of the time, it's really deserved. I mean, she's eating the runway every week, and in the challenges, she's doing amazing. But then we have queens like Dawn and Morphine who have only broken their safe streak recently, and Tsunami Muse who has a record-breaking streak of safe placements. The only time that she's been able to get critiques is in the first week, and ironically the girl group week. It reminds me a ton of season 11 where people like Brooklyn and Evie were in the top almost every single week. It's great for the queens who are in the top because they're obviously doing great in the competition and you're falling in love with them. But other people just fall into the background, and I think that really sucks. And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's any great way to go about this. They can't just like justify anyone in the top for diversity's sake. It's just a real unfortunate position to be in because people forget how much more screen time a queen gets when they're in the top or even the bottom. So queens just don't have as much attention on them when they are called safe, even though they are doing decent in the competition. And lastly, I just want to touch on the structure of this Rusical really quick because I thought it was okay, definitely not as good as they have been in the past couple seasons. But the writing of this one was probably the least fair it has ever been for a Rusical, I would say. There were 3 roles that got solos, and those 3 people who got the solos were in the top. And let me tell you, they were deserved. I mean, Plasma destroyed this challenge. It was great to watch. You can often tell in Rusicals when certain roles are set up to win, and these 3 roles were set up to be the most successful. Again, even though they were set up to be successful, the queen still has to do good. I mean, we've seen like Bosco or Lucy, they had the main character roles and they were in the bottom. But more often than not though, if there is a big spotlight performance for a character in a Rusical, it's setting the queen up to be placed either high or low. It's just really hard to justify a supporting trio character winning over any of the characters who had a solo performance, if that makes sense. So when Melissa McCarthy in this episode says there are no small roles, just small actors, I really can't get behind it, to be honest. In a real life setting, yes, for sure. But in a competition setting, yes, there are small roles and there are roles that are set up to be a lot bigger. That's why I really like the Chers or the Madonnas or the Divas Rusicals, because everyone gets their own little time in the spotlight. I have no idea why as of late they've been leaning more towards the musical parodies, potentially because they're easier to structure and write for, I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, it was just a very predictable episode in general, because when the queen with the BFA got the lead role, what do you think's gonna happen? Let me do a positive sandwich. I truly do love this cast. Every single queen on here is super unique. The show hasn't been utilizing everyone the best, and I haven't been connecting to the season in that way, but I've been connecting with the queens for sure. Easily some of the best artistry we've ever gotten on the show, and it really makes me excited to watch each and every week. I'm adding this little part in because I waited for Snatch Game to air before I uploaded this video talking about season 16. Snatch Game was a pretty good one. I think it was very obvious tops and then some very obvious bottoms. Tsunami going from a really long safe streak to then being eliminated, it's a little tragic, but it made sense because she did do pretty bad in this episode.
No.
And I said I didn't know what direction I was going.
And once again, Saphira and Plain are in the top, and Q was called safe for the first time this week. Like I said, it's not bad for some queens to dominate the season. That's just kind of how it ends up a lot of the time when queens are doing really well. I just think we're at the point where the top 5 can probably be picked out pretty easily. I am happy that Maya did really good this week, but next week being another design challenge, I don't know. I think they want this girl gone. This is the 3rd design challenge already, and it's kind of tapping on season 3's ass for the most design challenges in a season. At the very least, there are so many queens on the season who are serving amazing looks in these design challenges, so I'm not really complaining. Plain didn't end up using her potion this week, like I said earlier in this video, but I am happy that production is giving it an expiration date, but not like a really instant one. So it gives her some time to strategize and think, but it pressures her enough to make it really interesting. I think they're just overall handling this twist really well. There's still so much of the season left, and I'm going to do another video down the line talking about it and seeing how my thoughts have changed. So I will update you soon on that. Please go support all of the queens from season 16. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video.
Those dancing shoes look a lot like your character shoes that you wore last week.
My character shoes?
The character shoes that
I ain't got no character shoes. My name is James Brown.